The cops had her face down on the courthouse floor, hands cuffed tight behind her back. Cameras were out. People whispered. "Thief," someone muttered. Nia Thomas, just 18, said nothing. She didn't scream. She didn't beg. She just waited, because the moment they let her speak, she was going to destroy every lie with one move. And when she finally lifted her head, everyone froze, because she pulled out a CIA badge. Just hours earlier, Nia was walking through the front doors of the city courthouse, dressed sharp and carrying a quiet confidence. She wasn't nervous. She was used to moving alone, keeping her head down, staying focused. All she had to do today was sit in the back, take notes, and disappear. That was the job. But one wrong glance from one wrong officer changed everything. "You!" A cop barked as she reached the security line. "Step out." She paused. "Why?" "You fit the description of a suspect we're looking for," he said, already reaching for her arm. "I'm here as a federal observer," she replied calmly. "Yeah?" he smirked. "And I'm the president." Before she could speak again, he had her bag on the table and her wrists in cuffs. Within minutes, she was being marched through a side hallway like a criminal. Phones were out. People stared. The whispers stung more than the cuffs. "She doesn't look innocent. She looks like trouble." They shoved her into a small holding room. No one asked questions. No one checked ID. They just assumed. Young, black, alone. Must be the one. Why so quiet now? One of the officers laughed as he went through. Her phone. Not so tough anymore, huh? She looked at him, but said nothing. Let them laugh. Let them assume. They were making a mistake that would cost them more than they knew. Half an hour later, she was dragged into a courtroom still in cuffs. The judge looked confused. The audience looked entertained. Nobody expected what was about to happen. Few seats back, a white woman leaned over to her friend. "That girl gave up her seat to me this morning on the bus. She was sweet. I can't believe this." The judge banged his gavel. "Officers, explain yourselves." She matched the description. "Of a suspect from earlier today," one officer said. "We acted accordingly." "She was called here as an observer," the judge replied. "Not a suspect. Was her ID checked?" Silence. That's when Nia raised her cuffed hands slightly. "Your Honor," she said firmly. "May I speak?" The judge nodded. "I'd like permission to retrieve something from my jacket pocket." The officer beside her stepped forward. "We already searched." "Let her," the judge said, cutting him off. Nia reached slowly into her pocket, pulled out a thin black leather wallet, and flipped it open on the stand. Dead silence. Inside was a real, federally issued CIA badge with her full name and credentials. Everyone in the room stopped breathing. The courtroom went from loud murmurs to stunned silence. The judge leaned forward, eyes wide. The officers stepped back as if they had just touched fire. "Miss Thomas," the judge said slowly, Is this real?" "Yes, sir," she replied. "I was placed here as part of a silent operations assessment. I wasn't supposed to speak until they gave me no choice." One woman gasped. A man stood from his seat, shaking his head. "That girl, that's the same one I saw, walking into the federal building last week." The officers were pale now, unsure whether to run or apologize. The judge's voice dropped. "Remove her cuffs now." Hands scrambled to unlock her, but it was too late. The damage was done. Nia stood, adjusting her sleeves. Her eyes didn't flinch, didn't waver. She turned toward the crowd. "You assumed," she said quietly, "and your assumption nearly became someone's headline." And yet, just as the judge was about to dismiss her, another man stood up from the courtroom bench. "Wait," he shouted. "She's lying. She's the one I saw. She was there at the scene, gasps echoed. The judge looked confused again. Nia's expression didn't change, but she was no longer holding the badge. Her hand slid into her coat pocket again. Slowly. The courtroom TENSED? Had this all just flipped again? Was the CIA badge fake? Was this girl actually hiding something? Else, why was a civilian accusing her? Why had she really come to court? Something didn't feel right. And then the doors at the back of the courtroom flew open. 2 men in black suits walked in. One flashed his badge. Real. High-ranking. They didn't speak. They walked straight to the judge and handed him a sealed envelope. He read it in silence, then looked at Nia, then looked at the officers. What he said next left everyone speechless. The judge slowly placed the envelope down, his face unreadable. His hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the weight of what he had just read. Everyone leaned forward, waiting. Even the court reporters had stopped typing. He looked at the 2 officers who had arrested Nia. You 2 will remain in this courtroom. Do not move, do not speak, unless spoken to. Is that clear? They nodded, stunned. One of them opened his mouth to explain, but the judge raised a hand. Not another word. Then he turned to Nia. His tone shifted, softer, respectful. Miss Thomas, please step forward. She did. Do you wish to stay for what happens next? He asked. Nia met his eyes. Yes, sir. I do. He nodded and turned to the man who had just accused her, the one who stood up and shouted that she was at the scene. State your name, the judge ordered. The man hesitated, then cleared his throat. Kevin Rhodes. And what do you do for a living? Mr. Rhodes? I work for a private security firm, he said. I saw her. I know what I saw. Nia raised an eyebrow. Do you? Kevin looked nervous now, like he realized too late that this wasn't going to go his way. One of the suited agents at the back of the room stepped forward. Your Honor, he said calmly, may we present evidence confirming Miss Thomas's whereabouts at the time in question? The judge nodded. The agent walked to the clerk's desk, handed over a slim black flash drive, and stepped back. The judge signaled to the bailiff, who plugged the drive into the courtroom monitor. A few seconds later, grainy footage filled the screen time-stamped security camera footage from inside a federal building. There was Nia, walking through metal detectors, escorted by 2 agents. The date and time matched exactly when Kevin Rhodes claimed she was at the scene. She couldn't have been in 2 places at once. Kevin's face drained of color. The judge leaned back in his chair. So you were either mistaken or intentionally lying under oath. I just thought, Kevin stammered. No, Nia interrupted, her voice calm but firm. You didn't think, you reacted. Because you saw someone who looked like me and decided that was enough. The judge nodded slowly. Miss Thomas, I'm deeply sorry for what you've endured today. It appears your presence here revealed more than we expected. Then he looked at the officers again. You will both be temporarily suspended, pending an internal review. And this court will forward today's incident to federal oversight. You acted without confirmation, without cause, and in direct violation of courtroom procedures. The officers looked down, silent. Just then, the white woman from earlier, the pregnant woman Nia, had given her bus seat to stood up. Her eyes were watery. She gave up her seat for me this morning, she said to the judge, her voice shaking. And I handed her a note. Something I wanted to tell her, but didn't say out loud. Nia turned, surprised. The woman continued. My husband was CIA. I recognized the way she walked, the way she scanned the room. I knew she wasn't normal. That's why I wrote what I did. She opened her purse, pulled out a small folded note, and handed it to the clerk. The judge nodded. Let her read it, he said. Nia took the paper, slowly unfolding it. Her eyes moved across the words, and for the first time all day, her expression cracked just a little. The note read, "I see you, I know what you are, and I'm proud. The world needs more like you." The room was quiet, then suddenly the courtroom doors slammed open again. A young black man stood there, wide-eyed and panting. "Is she here?" He shouted. "Is Nia okay?" Everyone turned. Nia's face lit up. It was the teen from the bus, the one she had smiled at just before giving up her seat. He held up a crumpled envelope in his hand. "She saved me this morning, told me to believe in myself, that I was more than what people see." The judge blinked. "And you are?" He stepped forward. "My name's Elijah. I was on my way to skip a job interview. I didn't think I'd get. She made me go anyway. I just got the call." "I got it." He turned to Nia. "You didn't even know me. And you changed my life." Nia looked down at the note in her hand, then up at him. "You deserved it," she said simply. The courtroom, silent just a moment ago, began to stir again. But this time it wasn't anger or doubt, now it was respect, because in the space of a single morning, an 18-year-old black girl who had been falsely accused, arrested, humiliated in front of dozens, had revealed the power of quiet strength, smart choices, and refusing to let the world decide who she was. But even as things calmed, a phone buzzed in one agent's pocket. He answered. His eyes widened. He looked at Nia. "Ma'am, we have a situation. One connected to the case you were monitoring." Nia's calm expression returned. "I'm listening." He leaned in. "The man who tried to frame you isn't who he says he is either. We just flagged him on an international watch list." Nia nodded, eyes sharp again. "So this wasn't over. Not yet." Nia's eyes didn't blink. Her voice was steady. "Which watch list?" she asked the agent. The man lowered his voice, aware of the courtroom still buzzing behind them. "Interpol Red Notice. Alias used in multiple surveillance breaches across 3 countries. His real name's not Kevin Rhodes." Nia slowly turned to look at the man who had just accused her in open court. Kevin, or whatever his real name was. He had gone pale, frozen in his seat. The confidence from earlier had drained completely. He now looked like a man caught in a trap he didn't know how to escape from. "How long do we have?" she asked. "Not long," the agent replied. "He's armed, and we believe he wasn't here just to cause trouble. He was here to extract something. Or someone," Nia said. The judge, catching the tension, raised a brow. "Agents, is there something the court needs to know?" But before the agent could answer, Kevin, if that was his real name, suddenly stood up. "I want a lawyer," he snapped, voice cracking. "Right now." The bailiff stepped forward. "Sir, sit down." But Kevin didn't. In a flash, his hand went to his belt. "Gun." Someone screamed. Panic exploded in the courtroom. People ducked. Chairs crashed. The judge slammed his gavel. But no one heard him. Everything moved in slow motion, except for Nia. She moved first, like instinct, like muscle memory. She crossed the space between them in seconds, grabbing Kevin's arm before he could fully draw the weapon. He twisted, struggling, but Nia was already ahead of him, locking his wrist, kicking the back of his knee, and driving him down to the floor in one clean motion. The weapon skidded across the courtroom tiles. The agents rushed in, pinning him down, shouting commands. Within seconds, it was over. Kevin, real name, Pavel Jurek, was in custody. The judge stood slowly, stunned. "Is everyone all right?" Nia nodded, brushing dust from her coat. "We're good." The courtroom began to settle again, though the energy in the air had completely changed. What started as a false accusation had unraveled into something far more dangerous. The agent handed the judge a dossier. This man has been using fake identities to monitor federal witnesses. Miss Thomas was his latest target, but we believe she wasn't the only one. The pregnant woman, still shaken, clutched her stomach and whispered, "I sat right next to him this morning." Nia turned to her. "You're okay. He won't hurt anyone else." The agent looked at Nia. "We need you back at headquarters. There's more going on here than we thought." Nia nodded, but her eyes moved toward the young man Elijah Still, sitting in the back, holding the job offer email in his hands. Like it was made of gold dot, she walked over. "Keep that paper close," she told him. "It's the start of something better." He stood up. "Will I see you again?" She smiled softly. "If you keep doing the right thing, maybe you won't need to." As the courtroom cleared out, one of the officers who had arrested her earlier stepped forward, clearly ashamed. "I'm sorry," he muttered. Nia looked at him for a long second. "Learn from it," she said. "That's all I care about." He nodded. Then, with the agents beside her, she walked out of the courtroom, not as a suspect, not as a witness, but as what she truly was. An undercover CIA operative, just 18 years old, already doing what most adults couldn't handle. And yet, as she reached the black SUV waiting outside, her phone buzzed again. A new alert. Subject: potential breach at secure site. Possible connection to courtroom incident. Immediate response required. She slid into the back seat, clipped on her seatbelt, and pulled out a small earpiece. "I'm ready," she said into the mic, and just like that, Nia was back on the clock, because this wasn't over, not even close. The SUV moved fast through the city, weaving through afternoon traffic. Rain had started again light, but steady coating the windows in a blur of gray. Nia sat in the back, her eyes fixed on the screen in her hand. Her jaw was tight. Her mind sharper than ever. On the screen was a live satellite image of a facility on the outskirts of Visidia, quiet government data center that barely showed up on maps. But the red blinking marker told her what she needed to know. It had been accessed. Not breached. Accessed. By someone who knew exactly what they were doing. The agent driving glanced at her in the rearview mirror. "You think it's connected to Pavel?" Nia nodded once. "He didn't come to court to frame me. That was just the distraction." "Then what was the real target?" She stared at the screen. Someone inside. Her earpiece clicked. "Agent Thomas," a voice came through. "We've confirmed biometric ID. The person who accessed the site is using Level 3 clearance under the name Michelle Granger. Problem is, Michelle Granger's been dead for 2 years." Nia's eyes narrowed. "Then someone is using a ghost identity. And if they're inside already—" She didn't finish the sentence. The SUV swerved onto a side road, cutting through a restricted zone. Armed guards recognized the clearance on the windshield and opened the gate without delay. The building ahead was massive plain concrete walls, no signage. Cold, quiet, exactly how Nia remembered it. She stepped out before the car even stopped completely. Inside the facility, tension crackled in the air. Officers and agents stood clustered near monitors, all staring at the same screen. The feed from Vault 9.nia walked up to the director. "What's inside Vault 9 right now?" she asked. He looked over, hesitant. "Only one thing. The identity list." Her stomach dropped. The identity list wasn't just a list. It was the list names of every undercover U.S. operative embedded around the world. One leak, one download, one photo, and lives would be lost in hours. And someone pretending to be a dead agent was already standing near it. "Seal the exits," Nia said sharply. "Now." "But we don't even know if she's in there for a reason." Nia snapped. "And I don't think she's sightseeing." An alarm suddenly blared. Red lights flashed across the corridor. Cameras cut out. And on the main screen, Vault 9's door had just opened. Nia didn't wait. She was already running. Down the hall. Badge out. Boots slamming on polished floor. Every second mattering more than the last. She turned a corner and saw her a woman in a black tactical suit, standing alone in front of a console. Not hurried. Not panicked. Calm. Like she belonged there. Nia raised her voice. Step away from the panel. Now. The woman turned around slowly, and Nia's breath caught It was a face she knew. A face she hadn't seen since she was 15. Jade? Nia whispered. You're dead. The woman smiled softly. No, little sister. I just disappeared. The hallway froze in one instant. The story Nia thought she knew about who she was. Why she was recruited. Why she was alone shattered Jade. Thomas her sister. The one who vanished 3 years ago. The one Nia had been told died on assignment. She wasn't dead She was right here standing inside a classified vault. One click away from exposing everything. Why are you here? Nia asked, voice barely a whisper. Jade took a step forward. To stop what's coming. But you've been kept in the dark, Nia. We all have. You're compromising lives, our people. No, Jade said, voice sharp. I'm saving them. The people who trained us? Lied to us. Used us. They don't care who dies. I have proof. You could have come to me. You didn't need to do this. They would have buried me again. Nia hesitated. Every instinct told her to stop Jade, to shut it down. Call back up, lock the place. Down. But every part of her heart told her something else. Jade wasn't a traitor. She was a warning. Before Nia could decide what to do, another alert came through her earpiece. We've just detected a secondary signal from inside the facility. Not Jade, there's someone else. Nia turned sharply. What? The lights flickered? A second presence? It wasn't just Jade. This whole thing, Pavel, the corkroom, the identity list, it wasn't just about a rogue agent, It was about something bigger, and someone else was still in the building. Nia turned. Back to Jade. Who's with you? But Jade didn't answer, because just then, the vault door behind her slammed shut. Locked from the outside, someone had sealed them both in. The courtroom was frozen in silence. The judge, who had once spoken with dismissive certainty, now stared at Nia like she was someone entirely different, because she was. The badge she'd presented wasn't fake. It wasn't for show. It was the real deal. And the courtroom was still catching up to that fact. Agent Mallory West, Nia's direct superior at the CIA, had arrived minutes ago. A stern woman with ice-cold eyes and an air of command that could silence a riot. She didn't waste time with pleasantries. Your Honor, she said, handing over a sealed folder. These are classified documents, cleared for judicial review. Under emergency protocol. They contain proof of Miss Thomas's deep cover clearance, authorization orders, and the investigation she was assigned to. The judge opened the file slowly. His hands trembled. Inside was not only Nia's official clearance, but high-level correspondence showing that the local police department, yes, the very same one that arrested her, had long been under surveillance for corruption, racial profiling, and fabricated arrests. And Nia had been assigned to expose it from the inside. The same cops who cuffed her were her mission. Gasps filled the room. A few jurors covered their mouths. The lead arresting officer turned pale. I didn't. No, he stammered. You weren't supposed to, Nia finally said, her voice calm and precise. That's the point of covert work. But instead of doing your job right, you harassed a girl because of the color of her skin. And you just exposed your entire department in front of federal cameras. The courtroom doors burst open again. This time, it was the U.S. Attorney General, and he walked straight to the judge's bench. Effective immediately, he declared, This case is closed. Miss Thomas is to be released. Furthermore, a federal investigation into your local precinct has been activated, and the officers involved in this unlawful arrest will be suspended pending full review. Nia stood tall, rubbing her wrists where the cuffs had dug into her skin. Her father, who had watched the whole trial with silent fury, finally smiled Dot as she walked out of the courtroom. The same people who once doubted her now stepped aside in silence, but before leaving, Nia turned and looked straight into the courtroom camera. For every young black woman who's been silenced, dismissed, or disrespected, this is for you, she said. The footage would go viral. The story would shake departments across the country. And for those officers who thought they could get away with it, they just picked the wrong girl. Outside the courthouse, the air felt heavier, as if the world itself had just been forced to stop and listen. News crews swarmed the steps. Cameras clicked. Microphones reached out like desperate hands, all pointed at one young black woman who was never supposed to matter. But now, the nation wanted to hear her name. Nia Thomas, she said calmly into the nearest mic. Yes, I'm a federal agent. Yes, I was profiled. But I'm not here just for me. I'm here for every innocent kid who was silenced, slammed, and labeled before they ever had a chance to speak. Behind her, the same officers who had once smirked while putting her in cuffs were now being escorted away, ironically, in handcuffs themselves. Some of them shouted about misunderstanding. Others just hung their heads in shame. None of them looked powerful anymore. Agent Mallory West stepped beside Nia. You did good, she said. Better than good. You made them see. Nia didn't. Smile, not yet. It's not over. They'll find another girl next time. Another excuse. Mallory nodded. Maybe, but now they know the next girl might be you. At that moment, her father walked down the steps, tears in his eyes. You didn't just survive, baby. You changed everything. She hugged him tight. It wasn't the reunion of a victim. It was the embrace of a fighter returning from battle. Victorious. Later that night, a quiet video went live on Nia's private page. Just a black screen with her voice narrating. You thought I was just a teenager. You thought I was weak. You tried to bury me. But what you didn't know is, I was already planted. And now I grow. The video would be seen by millions. But for Nia, the real victory wasn't fame or revenge. It was making sure no one else would suffer in silence again. She wasn't just a name in a case file anymore. She was a movement. She was just getting started. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Brew. Because the next story might hit even harder.